Thanks, Michael.
Go.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our International Women's Day 2023 Fireside Chat event with keynote speaker and author Anneli Blundell. I'm Belinda Fry. I'm the Victorian State Merchant Marketing Manager for the Foods Division, and I'll be your host today. I'm very, very excited. Great to see so many people have joined the call, and also a big shout out to our very special guests here live in the room in Laverton in Victoria. Give us a shout out, guys. Thank you. Also a shout out to all the team members, both across Australia and New Zealand, who have joined us virtually. Really, really happy to have you here. Now, we want this session to be inclusive, but also really interactive. So if you've got any questions along the way, please just pop them into the chat function, and we will have a Q&A section a little bit later down in the session that we'll put your questions to Anneli. I hope you are feeling brave.
I'm ready.
Awesome.
I'm ready, Belinda. Let's do it.
Awesome. So before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we're broadcasting to you from. I'd like to pay my respects to the elders, past, present and emerging. We're also streaming through to our teams in New Zealand. So kia ora tātou, which means hello to all in Maori. The tangata whenua of Aotearoa and all others that call it home. Right.
Oh, well done, you.
Thank you. I did have to practice.
Did you practice?
I did practice. Okay, so we are here to celebrate International Women's Day for 2023. Today, March 8th, is a global celebration of the social, economic, cultural and political achievements of women worldwide. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity, with groups coming together worldwide to celebrate women's achievements and to rally to rally for women's equality. And the International Women's Day 2023 theme this year is Embrace Equity. So if you are doing any social posts, please do tag them with hashtag Embrace Equity. So what does it mean to embrace equity? The Embrace Equity theme seeks to get the world talking about why equal opportunities are no longer enough. And as part of our Metcash commitment to build a diverse, equitable and inclusive workplace, we have a clear focus on gender, and I hope that everyone feels that in the work that we do here at Metcash. Our aspiration is to advance a community of leaders providing equitable opportunities where people can feel free to be their authentic selves at work. The aim is to do this through proactive attraction and recruitment, through development and connection, and also through the acceleration of women, but not to the detriment of men, but for the advancement of everyone. We're also at Metcash a WGEA, which stands for Workplace Gender Equality Agency, employer of choice for gender equality. And we've held this citation since 2019, which is pretty bloody awesome. Go team. On a personal level, I am particularly passionate about the opportunities to accelerate opportunities for women at Metcash. And for me, it's about not providing any kind of unfair advantage, but by giving women access to development and mentoring so that they can build confidence to take their rightful seat at the table. And that's, for me, what that's all about. So anyway, enough with the long-winded preamble. Let me now very, very formally welcome you, Anneli, to our stage here and get on with the show.
All right, let's do it.
Awesome. So first question. You ready? I'm going to big cricket pause.
All right.
Let's call out the elephant in the room. Mm-hmm. Gender diversity is gaining momentum around the globe, and within organisations everywhere. But why should any of us, men or women, care? Is it just a fad? And why should we take gender diversity seriously?
Is it just a fad? That's a good question. It's definitely not a fad, even though it can feel faddish. It can feel faddish. I do believe we've hit a point where we're getting a little bit of a diversity fatigue. I have seen a little bit about that coming through social media, why we're still talking about this. But unfortunately, we're still talking about this because until those numbers change, we will be talking about this for a long time. Every year we get a new number about how many years it will take for women and men to reach true equality when it comes to gender pay and just in society. And I tell you, that number is not moving fast enough from my perspective. So gender pay gap, we're still sitting around 14% at the moment, and it's just not shifting fast enough given the amount of attention it's getting. So as far as I'm concerned, it's definitely not a fad. This is not a fad. This is something that we need to be continually not just talking about, but addressing. And actually, this is why I really like the theme this year. Really, and I did a post about this morning, should be up now on LinkedIn, around...
Shameless plug.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, yes. Because we're not going to have time to cover it in full here. So if you want to know more, it's on LinkedIn. But really asking the question, what is the difference between equality and equity? You know, we use these terms interchangeably, tomato, is it really the, you know, what's the big difference? But moving from focusing on equality, which is actually about giving people the same opportunities, yeah, to equity, which in some way is giving some groups more resources and support than others so they can all reach and have access to the same opportunities. So that's actually about fairness. And until we start looking at all the structural ways that we are continuing to take up our roles in society that are forcing us or guiding us into different positions, we're not really going to make headway towards equality.
So in your book,
Yes.
right,
This book?
oh, yeah, sorry, that book,
Would
the gender penalty.
Would this be your version of the book?
That would be my version of the
Okay.
book. I've read it a couple of times.
Yes. All right.
In your book,
Yes.
you talk about the fact that you are an accidental feminist. So I want to just delve into that just briefly because you sort of talk about, you know, this need to create the structural change to get those numbers in the right place. And,
Yes.
But how did you come to write the book? How did you come to be on this game plan?
Yes, it was definitely not something I set out to do. A bazillion years ago, when I had a corporate job, I'm now officially unemployable, just so you know. But before this life of doing this work, 17 years running my own business, I worked at the ANZ Bank. I was in a corporate space. And I was young. I was at the start of my career. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage, no family responsibilities. So, of course, I saw the world as I think a lot of, please come with me on this ride, a lot of men with wives at home might see the world, i.e. I'm available 24/7. I've got someone taking care of the family and the kids. Yes, I can work overtime. Yes, I can travel. You know, I've got that sort of sense of freedom when it comes to my career. So I thought I'd make my own opportunity. I'm just, you know, there's really no inequality. I don't know what all the fuss is about, Belinda. That is what my younger self was saying.
Yeah.
I don't see what all the fuss is about. And then I started working for myself, and I was coaching individuals, so men and women in the workplace, helping them with their communication and influence. And what I noticed was that the conversations I was having with men and women about their careers and moving into leadership or being taken more seriously as leaders was very, very different. You know, for the men, we were talking about the business acumen, what it takes. We were talking about more of the EQ aspects, how to be more around transformational leadership, having a more transformational leadership style. Whereas for the women, it was more around how to build your authority, how to build your credibility. The women who came to me always came with that this person is an absolute star performer. they're brilliant at what they do, but they're just not seen as a leader. And I think, why are they not seen as a leader when they are a leader? It didn't make sense to me that the brief was they're brilliant, they're a great leader, but people don't see them as a leader. And I just couldn't, why? And the more I dug into the research, the more I realised that actually it's less to do about the way that men and women lead and more to do with this idea that the model we hold in our minds of leadership is based on the male model, because that's what we've had for eons. It's no right or wrong. It's just what we've always come to know. And so when we look at female leadership or people, anyone who leads in a way that may not be aligned with what we're used to seeing, we automatically think it's less than. You need to be more assertive. You need to be more bold. You need to be more directive. Well, do you? Or is that just you being more of what we're used to? And if that's not how you show up, then what do we do about that? So actually what we need to be doing is managing the perception of how women are received in the workplace rather than changing who they are and, you know, changing their skill sets. Because what we need, to your point around diversity, is actually we need people to lead in many different ways. And so I found myself, you know, in this camp of women need support, you know, we need to give women more help. I started running credible communication programs. So this is teaching women how to communicate. Well, actually, it wasn't just for women, to be honest. This was for professionals, for technical experts who wanted to be seen as an authority and taken seriously. But anytime I ran that for women, it was like, where have you been all my life? How do you see me? How do you know what's going on in my world? How do you know that this is exactly what I need to be taken more seriously?
And then can I just say that was my experience when I did your course.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's what happened.
Right. So because all of a sudden it's a legitimacy to, well, I know I can make an impact. I know I'm a great leader. I know that what I'm doing is working, but there's a difference between performance and perception, and that's the problem for women. It's nothing wrong with your leadership style. It's no better or different from men. There's some research that says some different things about that, but actually it's about how it's being perceived. And is it being perceived as equally legitimate? And that's where the gap is. And so here I am, you know, training a whole bunch of people around how to communicate in ways and not change who you are. It's not about giving up your passport to your gender. This is about talking another language. So in the room, in the moment, you can turn it on and have the gravitas to be seen and to be heard. And so the idea was equipping women with skills and tools to navigate an unequal leadership landscape. That's what it was really about. And now I'm staunchly feminist because I realise feminism is actually about equality, and feminism is as much for men actually as it is for women. So yeah, here I am, Belinda. Here I am.
Awesome. I'll move on to the next question, and this is really framed around your book. Sorry, the book, The Gender Penalty. If you
sure.
do look it up. So we've just launched the book, and by the way, I mean that seriously. I have read the book a couple of times, and what I love about it is you have a really relaxed style in which you write. Like, it's like talking to you. So you guys see Anneli here now. You read the book, it's like she's there reading it to you. So really easy to read, but it's also really based in some serious research, as well as case studies from your decades of running masterclasses. So it just comes across as really, really relevant and insightful. And in the book, you frame this notion, the workplace, as a game. So where men stereotypically treat the workplace akin to a sporting field,
yep,
whereas women stereotypically treat their workplace more like a classroom. So for those who haven't read the book, and I'm sure you only launched it at the start of last month.
Yes.
So for those who haven't read the book, what does it all mean? What is the game? Yeah. And what are the 5 gender penalties that you talk about in the book?
Okay. So the reason I use the sporting analogy all the way through the book, which, can I just say, Belinda, very dangerous move on my part. I know nothing about sport. And I had many conversations with my husband around penalties, fouls, playing flat out, playing full on, like offside. I'm out of my depth with this metaphor. I really don't know what I'm doing with this metaphor, but it really works because, and I like also how you say stereotypically, this is how men and women show up in the workplace, because everything that I talk about in the book and even in the conversation today, you know, I'll reference gender stereotypes, but of course they're stereotypes. There is an exception to every rule. But if we can't talk about the stereotypes, we can't actually have a conversation at this level. So I need to be able to reference groups and typical behaviours. So stay with us on that conversation. So the idea here is this comes from an operating metaphor around the idea of if I asked you to finish this sentence, life is like a, and I know you're probably thinking box of chocolates. Right? And I did put this in the book because I'm sure you would be thinking life is like a box of chocolate. But Forrest Gump, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, or couldn't tell by my awesome accent, is this idea that typically when women answer that question, they say life is like a classroom. And in a classroom, there are very particular rules. You're a good girl, you turn up on time, you do the work, you do the homework, you study hard. And when you study hard, you automatically get bumped up to the next grade, right? There's no show ponying. You don't have to tell your teacher how good you are. Your work speaks for itself. The hard work pays off. Everything is personal. It's about who you are. Whereas when men would answer the question, they would say life is like a sporting field or a sporting team. It's all about how you play. It's about playing full out. It's about knowing the rules. It's about knowing how to bend the rules. It's about knowing who the opponents are. It's about the competition. How do we win? So from that perspective, it's all about the strategy, being seen, being picked for the team. So if we relate those two metaphors to work, the game of work, that's why I pitched it as the game of work, is that women are, because remember the game of work, as we've inherited it nowadays, was built by men for men hundreds of years ago, right? That was just the way it was. It was always just rooms of men and, you know, women were at home. And the structures we've inherited, the policies, the cultural way of operating has come from that era. And so we've ended up with a game. We're all playing this game of work now. We're all on the sporting field, but women turn up to the game going, okay, so if I work really hard and I have all the right qualifications and I have 7 PhDs and I am the smartest person in the room and I am the most qualified, then I will just get bumped up, right? Wrong. Wrong. We know that it's not just about being qualified or being able to do the job. We also know that it's about being visible. You have to be seen. You have to be on the radar. As much as I want to play politics. Oh my God, if I had a dime for every time someone said, Anneli, I don't want to play the political game. And you don't have to play the political game, but I tell you right now, it is about visibility. If you're not on somebody's radar, then all that good work and training, qualification is not going to mean anything. So this whole idea of women actually being on the sporting field, not realising that that's the game at play and they're actually in the classroom, this is why they're getting fouled. This is why they're being benched. This is why they're being overlooked, because they're waiting to go to the next level because of hard work. Whereas men are playing the game at play. They know who they need to be in front of. They're thinking about the strategies. They're thinking about making those connections. They are socially supported to be able to talk themselves up, you know, talk about their accomplishments. Whereas when women talk about their accomplishments, they're seen as bragging or boasting. We don't like that. So there's all these double binds at play if you're a woman playing in a quote unquote man's world, because actually what's going on is when women get career advice that says, oh, you need to be more leader-like, right? You need to be more leader-like, which remember that the stereotypical model now for a leader is what we've inherited from the male 24/7, always on, always available, directive, assertive, authoritative model. This is not every man, but this is the model that we've inherited. So when women are told you need to be more ladylike, that's what they're saying. You need to be more like that. But when women take on those behaviours and characteristics, so now all of a sudden I'm being more directive in a meeting, I'm being more authoritative, I'm stating my opinion. And now guess what I get told? I can see on your faces, you know what's coming. Oh, calm down, Anneli. No need to be so aggressive. We can hear you, love. You know, don't get hysterical. No need to get so emotional. And all of a sudden we get this social backlash. And the backlash is saying, oh no, remember, you need to be more ladylike. So the double bind that women face is when they try and be more leader-like, they get pinged for not acting like women, caring, supportive, humble, helpful, nurturing. But when they act like women in the ladylike, you know, genre, then they get pinged for not being seen as leader-like. So there are many penalties that women face, but the 5 main ones I chose to cover in the book were the ones that kept coming up over and over and over again in the research, and also in all the conversations I'm having with my executive coaching clients and all the stories I'm hearing as part of my Women at Work masterclass over the years. And that is communication, right? So communication is a big one. Women tend to get talked over, cut off, ignored. They don't have as much airtime in mixed gender conversations. So we know in mixed gender conversations, the typical meeting, about 75% of the time it's male dominated conversation. That's just what we understand it to be. So women are conditioned to make more space, and men are conditioned to take more space. It's how we're conditioned from kids, right? Women will, you don't tell me about your weekend, whereas men will be conditioned to be the centre of attention, or tell the funniest joke, or tell the best story, or, you know, it's about grabbing that limelight. So when we get into mixed gender conversations, that plays out in a way that doesn't serve women. Then we've got confidence penalty, which is around, again, women typically present with less confidence. They're told they have less confidence. And this is a big conundrum, because actually what we know is they don't necessarily have less confidence, but the workplace and the social structures around women have been reinforcing this idea that humility equals influence. So you've got to downplay your strengths. You know, you can't be too big for your britches, and you can't be too confident or you'll get hit with the backlash. Oh my God, you've got tickets on yourself. Calm down, love. Who do you think you are? You can't be that confident as a woman. And so women are grappling with this idea of, well, how do I have confidence, but I'm not allowed to show confidence? So how do I have quiet confidence? Like, what is the line for that? Yeah. So again, they're damned if they do, damned if they don't. Then we've got the boasting, which follows on beautifully from that. So if I can come to the idea that I'm worthy, I'm valuable, I've got something to contribute to the workplace, but I'm not allowed to talk about it, I can't showcase it, I can't take credit for it or own the credit for it without downplaying it or saying, oh, it wasn't really that much, or it wasn't that hard, or anyone could have done it, or this old thing, I just whipped this up 7 hours overnight, you know, no big deal, you know, that sort of stuff, right? Just downplaying. Because for women, we can't be seen to be boasting. Now, I would argue in Australia, we don't like anybody who boasts, men or women alike. We're not big fans of people who boast, but we are happy to hear men talk about what they've done or what they've achieved. We're less happy to hear about it from women. In fact, when women tend to talk up their strengths, they're seen as less likeable. And that's an issue for women in the workplace, because less likeable means less promotable, and there's a whole bunch of flow-on effects from that. And then the fourth one is around strength. Thank you very much. Looking for, reminders. Yep. I did write 210 pages, but, you know, remembering them all is kind of tricky. So strength, and this is around, okay, so be bold, be strong, be directive, tell us your opinion, ruffle some feathers. Just don't get so aggressive about it. When you do it, you know, just do it with a smile, do it in a nice way, don't make people feel uncomfortable. Set boundaries, be true to what you can do, you know, say no, just not to me because I really need the report and you're the only one who can do it because you're really good at it. But I really support you holding boundaries and saying no and pushing back on work that's not yours, that you've inherited. So we know that women are 40% more likely to be volunteered to do what we call office housework, non-promotable work. Think coffees, organising meeting rooms, organising offsites, team lunches, Kris Kringles, you name it. I guarantee you now, 99% of the time it's a woman doing that job. So the idea of saying no and pushing back creates backlash for women. Yep. And then the final one is the motherhood penalty. So women who have children are typically seen as less committed in the workplace, which just breaks my heart because I can't tell you the struggles that women face to regain legitimacy and to say my career is still important to me and I can still do this. Whereas men who have kids are typically seen as more responsible. Same activity, different perception. I'm telling you, it's not about performance, it's about perception. How are we perceiving the gender roles in the organisation? And so they're the penalties that women are facing.
Yep.
Are you all feeling happy now? Inspired? Convicted? It's all right, we'll get to that, won't we?
We'll get to that. So, okay, thank you. So now that's given us an excellent overview of the game and of the 5 gender penalties, and it's very depressing. But that's okay. It's okay.
Only if we leave it at that, but we're not going to.
That's true. Okay, so I'm going to bring it back to International Women's Day. The theme of International Women's Day, as remember, is embracing equity.
Yes.
So what can we do to advance the game of work for everyone?
Okay, that's a great question. So the way I structured the book was thinking long term about that, involving everyone. So before I did this book, well, actually in this book, yes, thank you very much. Very good. I'll take you on the road with me everywhere I go. While I was writing that book, I wrote another pocket book, a small one. It's an hour read. It's very easy. It's called When Men Lead Women, Navigating the Facts, Fears and Frustrations of Gender Equality as a Male Leader. I'm clearly not a male leader.
But by the way, I've read that book too. Everyone should read that book as well.
Thank you very much. And I wrote that because I was having so many conversations, quiet corridor conversations, one-on-one with male leaders saying, I'm interested, I'm on board, I'm actually unsure about how to engage in this. I feel the political landscape is so heated right now that, you know, I open the door for a woman, I get slapped. I don't open the door for a woman, I get slapped. I'm really not sure how to productively engage in these conversations, and I just need some help. So I just, you know, pumped out this little book to help men have those conversations and say, how do we lean into this without making it worse and being true to who we are and what we want? Because this is not up to women to fix in terms of equity and equal opportunity. And so from my perspective, I wrote the book with 2 things in mind. We need to be able to support women to navigate a gendered leadership landscape, right? Because there are obstacles and women do need strategies and tools to overcome these obstacles. But I don't want to just leave the book there and saying, hey, you're not in leadership position, or we're not in power, or in TVs or movies or in politics because we're not as good as men. That's not the case at all. We know that. So I also want to say, hey, we also need to be looking at not just how do we adapt our play while we're on the field in the game, but how do we advance the game for good? How do we actually get men and women working together to change the game? And I turned really Aussie for a second. I also wanted to make sure that the book wasn't just about advancing the game and, you know, and all the issues that are there structurally, because to me, that's like saying, all right, let's go march for justice. I'm all for marching for justice. Let's march for justice. But then I have to go back to the office and sit in a meeting where I'm talked over or I'm interrupted or I'm not in that meeting when I should have been in that meeting because I wasn't in the conversation that was happening behind closed doors that created that meeting. So we have to still have an eye on equity for the future where we work together, but women still need tools and strategies to handle the situations they're in on a day-to-day basis. So from my perspective, that the fight for gender equity is actually a fight for everyone against the conditioning of society that's placed these expectations on the roles of gender. And as far as I'm concerned, the more we tackle that, the better it is for everyone. This is not just breaking stereotypes for women. This is breaking stereotypes for men. Men are also living in masks. Men also have a stereotype that they have to live up to. They have to be the provider. They have to be the full-time provider. They have to manage their emotional state. Crying is a no-go in the workplace. Like, these are the sorts of things that men are also living with. And that's not a great way to live because you're not allowed to be fully you. That's it.
I have to say, when I had my children, I know my husband felt a lot of pressure around his right to take paternity leave, which was 2 weeks at the time. And even that 2 week, taking that 2 weeks off, he said he felt really uncomfortable and a lot of almost backlash.
Yes.
So for taking that 2 weeks off when we had our children each time.
Yes, exactly. And that's what I'm saying. So we're fighting for gender equity and we're talking about women. It is International Women's Day. We are talking about women. But when we win the war for gender equity, we win the war for all sexes. And the backlash happens for anyone who is acting outside of our expected norms for them.
I'm gonna read a quote to you from your book. You wrote it, so I hope you like it.
I hope I do too.
This is on. So just the 5 power plays you talk about in the book are.
Yes.
Start where you are.
Yep. So this is the power plays around how do we advance the system.
Yes.
Together.
Yep. So challenge the norms.
Yep.
Brave the backlash.
Yep.
Create the new and work together.
Yep.
On challenge the norms. It's
Yeah.
a really lovely quote in your book, though. I just want to read. Normal is a construct of what is common, not necessarily what is right. In a world of conditioned gender norms, it's easy to think that what exists around us has been deliberately constructed rather than unconsciously accepted. Too often, we accept the status quo because we don't realise we're in it, or that we can change it. It just feels, well, cool.
Yeah.
That, I think, for me,
So
that just
profound,
sums
don't
it
you
up.
think?
Yeah.
Amazing. Wordsmithing.
But yeah, I think that sums up what you're sort of talking about. That,
Yeah.
Yeah. It the other really nice quote that around backlash that I really liked, and I
Yes.
refer to my notes again, is when women act in ways that are generally associated with male behaviours, often seen as strong leadership, and you talked about this before, strong leadership traits rather than female ones, supportive and cooperative traits, they receive a negative backlash to get back in their box, or in this case, back in the classroom to talk about. So what practical things can we be doing and can leaders do? Both, we've obviously talked about things that we can do in the moment, but what things in terms of those power plays can we do to start to advance the game?
For me, a good place to start is with curiosity. So just pay attention to who's doing what in your teams, in your offices. You can start with the office housework. It's a classic one. So who's taking the minutes? Is it the same person every time? Who is organising the offsites? Is it the same person every time? Does it have to be that person? Can you start rotating that around? If you're a woman and it keeps coming to you, you can say, yes, very happy to do it this time. And next time I nominate Frank, and then Frank will nominate Judy, and and we sort of pass it around. So we first need to be aware of the norms we're in. It's that whole idea of does fish know it's in water? I don't know what the metaphor is. You probably don't know you're in water.
I was thinking about the Matrix.
Oh, the Matrix. Yeah. Okay. Nice. We'll go with that. Mixing metaphors. Bad move. So the idea here is we first have to be aware that stuff is happening, and then get really curious as to how did it get there? What can I do to shift it and challenge it? And for me, it's actually starting with ourselves. And this is why I want to share the story, because I want it to be clear. This is not men against women. It's all of us are in this matrix. All of us are being conditioned by society. Do you even realise the kind of roles you pick up and the things that you do without questioning why you're the one to be doing it or not doing it, per se? And this was a moment I had to myself, and I thought, okay, this has to go in the book, where I was going to local retailer, electronics retailer, to buy some camera equipment, right? Start pandemic-y time, right? So everybody needed camera equipment and stuff. So I had to go in, I was setting up the studio, and I saw camera equipment sign, and I saw a woman standing under the sign, and I was looking for someone to help me. And I spotted a guy, and I walked over to the guy in a different section, and I said, hey, I'm just here to look at some camera equipment. Can you help me? And he said, yes. And he walked me back under the sign that said camera, with the woman standing right there. And he said, blah, blah, she's the expert in this area. She'll help you. And can you imagine, right? Not only is this retailer one of my clients, and we run women in leadership programs in their offices. Oh my God, the levels of irony to this story, I can't tell you. I just had that moment of, oh, wow, okay. So I overlooked her because she was a woman, and I unconsciously, wasn't even thinking about it. I went camera, who's going to help me? Who's the most likely person with expertise in this electronic equipment area? I'll find a dude. So I did. And he's like, no, 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 this woman, she can help you. And when she opened her mouth, she was so knowledgeable. She knew everything about everything. I felt completely comfortable. And I went bright red in the face and thought, okay, Anneli, you're going to have to fall on your sword. This one's definitely going in the book, because it's a perfect illustration of how we are all in the matrix. We are all under the spell of the socialized conditioning and the constructs. And until we can have that moment that says, even I as someone, a feminist, someone who writes books about this, who runs trainings about this, if I'm still getting caught in this stuff, then, you know, I'm saying it's okay to catch yourself in these moments, but we have to start catching ourselves in the moment first before we start going, and you're doing this to me and all these people are out to get me. I'm like, no, this is not what it's about. We are all responsible for opening our eyes and having conversations about this and bringing it up.
Excellent. Yes. Okay, I'm going to move on to our last question here.
Yes.
So from a Metcash diversity, equity and inclusion perspective,
Yep.
From we do a survey, and what we know from that is that 50% of our workforce
Yep.
have regular parent and carer responsibilities. So with the strategies to overcome the gender penalties that we've talked about, what advice do you have about how parents and carers can find work-life balance, and also what can male leaders do to embrace equity and help those females experiencing those challenges?
Yeah. Okay. This is a really important question because parenting is so rife in our community. Have you noticed? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. So it's a really big deal and it affects most people in some way or another. And so I like this topic because it really does affect men and women. And particularly now we've been through the pandemic where we've really spotlighted the home caring responsibilities. I don't know if you've noticed, we've all noticed that there are little humans running around and we all have them and we don't have to.
Sometimes in my computer screen unintentionally.
Yeah. That's right. Sometimes just popping in and out of that background. So the idea around parenting and being a good leader to people who are parents. And the reason we're talking about this, mostly that is women, but I want to have the conversation as if it's both, mostly, because that's where we need to get to. So the first piece of advice I would say is, as a family unit, do an audit of household management. Do an audit of household management. So how do you divvy up the workload at home? Because caring responsibilities are one of the major obstacles for women. So it's not just caring for children, it's caring for the elderly. So women are in the sandwich generation particularly, and they take on the predominant load of caring responsibilities, which means they are the ones sacrificing, if you want to say that, or making decisions about how their career is going to go. And so until we can change that dynamic in the home, we're always going to be having the conversation about, can women be executives if they're part-time? Is job sharing ever going to work? All these things, which we do need to be having, because maybe men want to do these as well. This is not just for women, it's for everybody. But until we can shift the balance of responsibility at home, where the percentage falls largely to women, it's never going to be truly equal in the workplace. So firstly, I say start that conversation at home. Who's doing what? And this is not for women, ladies. This is not for ladies to go, okay, so this woman, this expert Anneli said, I need to make an inventory of all the things you're not doing at home. And so here it is, right? But that's not how this goes, because you would be surprised to know how much everyone is actually doing or thinking that they're doing, right? So there's a whole lot of stuff that the other partner will be thinking that they're doing. So it's a good exercise to both kind of list and discuss and share and maybe change around or roster or do something about that, yeah? But what that does is it opens your eyes to, oh, okay, so if that's what's going on at home, how is that coming into the workplace? And how might I be bringing some of those expectations into the workplace? So as a male leader, am I setting meetings at 8:30 in the morning and 4:30 in the afternoon? Of course, this is pickup time and drop off time for school runs, and it's not great. And now we're talking about this a lot. Even 5 years ago, we weren't talking about this. 5 years ago, we weren't at all.
3 years ago, we weren't.
Yeah, right. Pandemic has really brought this sort of stuff to the fore. But now we're talking about it more. So having conversations around maternity leave and staying in touch with women on maternity leave or not, but whatever that, have you asked about that? Have you got mechanisms for on-ramping and off-ramping? I've got one of the stories I talk about in the book is a woman who's a partner at a professional services firm. She's had 4 children and the 3, or maybe it's 5. I have to check the book. I think it's 4 children. And the last 3, every time she took maternity leave, she would have to hand over her clients and then start from scratch building a portfolio, right? As a partner, you get judged on how much money you bring in, i.e. how many clients you bring in. And she said, this time I'm not doing it. I'm not handing over my clients and starting from scratch. So we worked out this strategy around how she could get her managers and people around her to basically hand over to babysit, and she would keep in touch and she would stay in tune. And then when she came back, she took them back, thank you very much, and went on with her day. And she said, we don't ever have this conversation in the workplace. No manager's ever said to me, okay, this is what's going to happen when you go on maternity leave. You've thought about the strategy. How are we going to maintain your client base? We've never had that conversation. Why? Right. And so that's why I say, yes, it's up to all of us. It's up to you as the woman experiencing some sense of inequity to go, hey, this doesn't feel equal, because I tell you right now, men who aren't experiencing it aren't thinking about it. Not because they've got something against you, they're just not thinking about it. It's not their experience.
No, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Just not thinking about it. We're not even thinking about it. We're not even realizing we can have the conversation. This is the message. You can have the conversation. Bring it to the forefront. Enroll your manager in the conversation. If you're a manager, ask, what am I missing in this conversation? How am I going in my inclusive leadership? Is there anything I could be doing differently? Ask the people who are in the position to experience you as an inclusive leader or not.
Love it. Love it. All right. So we've now got to the part in the session for Q&A. So the amazing Brittany Delacruz has been collating questions from the chat function. Say hi, Britt.
Hello, everyone.
Okay. So Brittany is our brand manager here in Victoria on the foods team. By the way, if anyone does have any more questions, it's not too late. Do pop them into the chat function. Britt will continue to moderate questions as we go. But Britt, will you give us our first question for Anneli to respond to?
Yes, this one's a little bit of a long one. So a couple of questions in here. Why do you think that the pay gap isn't changing? Is it due to women working part-time, due to taking time out to raise a family? Is it the industries that traditionally attract women, e.g. nursing, teaching, etc., or lower paid when it comes to other industries, e.g. construction, engineering? And how about men and women in comparable positions in the same industry?
Ooh. Okay, have we got another hour? That's a great question, and I love that you're talking about this and asking about this. How can I do this quickly? So yes, and yes, probably is the answer to most of those questions. So the pay gap persists. It is very complex for starters. It's a very complex issue. The bug I have about the gender pay gap is I have seen many organisations, a lot of the ones I work with, close it overnight, literally close it overnight. They run the reports, they do the analysis, they close it overnight. And some companies say it is really complicated, it's much more tricky than that, and we can't do that. And my question is, why not? I appreciate that you can't, but why? Because some can. Let's share information. Let's deconstruct that. Let's work harder on that, because it is possible. I've seen it time and again. So there's a piece around willingness. There's a piece around a sense of capacity. Can we do this? The industry you're in definitely has a part to play in that. And the irony is what we noticed, there was a trend that was reported on that when women enter a workforce and start to dominate an industry, when women enter an industry and start to dominate that industry becomes devalued and the pay goes down in that industry.
Wow.
Right. So yes, we can say, you know, women and men should be treated equally. They do the same work. Clearly, we know they're equal, but clearly we actually don't. There is still an undercurrent of a cultural expectation that if women doing the work, it's not as valuable. And I think that's really interesting, and that's something we need to be talking more about. So we have to work harder in more male-dominated industries because we're just outnumbered, right? So it is a harder thing. We're working with cultural assumptions. We're working with intractable policies and procedures and stuff that we've inherited. So that is tougher, but it's also not just male-dominated industries. It's where there's lots of women in the industries. We're still not seeing equality there, which is still mind-boggling to me, that we still see more men in leadership, even when it's a predominantly female-dominated environment. So again, we still have issues in that space. For me, there's a couple of parts to that. So adapting your play on the field, what can women do? Advancing the game, what can the system do? Leaders. So women, I say, be talking about pay. Be talking about pay. Talk to your friends, talk to your sisters, talk to your colleagues, talk to your bosses, talk about money. You've got to talk about money.
And don't be afraid.
Yes.
To ask for more.
Yes. Right.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
So the purpose of talking about money is to go, really, do you get that much? Oh my God, we're doing a similar thing in a different company. Oh, maybe I should be asking for more. Yes, you should probably be asking for more. Do research, find out the pay bands, find out all that sort of stuff as much as you can. Go in armed to have the conversation. People who are hiring women, if you put, this is $100,000 and she only asked for 60, bonus. I'll keep 40 up my sleeve for whatever else when someone asks me for bonuses. No. You advertise at 100. She goes for 60. You say, actually, it's 100. You're getting 100. Right? So we have to both come at this from the same intention.
Cool. All right. Next question, Brett.
We're off and right.
That question was from Danielle, by the way. The next question is from Paul. How have social changes in, say, the past 15 years, less children being born or being born later in women's lives, the increase in stay-at-home male partners, etc., altered the workplace or career path for women?
It hasn't altered it. I wouldn't say it's altered it. I'd say it's altering it, and that is brilliant. So we are seeing a shift. We are seeing more policies come into place. The fact that you called it paternity leave, the fact that there was paternity leave, right? Remember, it was really just maternity leave. Yeah. You have a baby, you go home, you look after it, you come back, right? That's it. And now
Actually,
we're saying
it's parental leave.
Yeah, right. So, thank you. Yes, parental leave. Yes. So now we're more attuned to the structural inequity. So we're saying we need our policies and procedures to catch up. So now we're offering more of those things, but we're still a little behind culturally in picking them up because they're still a bit taboo, as per your husband's example, and we get a bit of backlash from that. So yes, things are changing because we've got progressive men and women going, parental leave is available, we are taking it. I've been wanting it for ages. And what happens is when men get to start accessing more of these initiatives like parental leave, what we know from the research is when women get to stay home longer with their babies earlier on, they automatically take more of the emotional, physical caring role at home because they grew up with it. I understand what it takes to keep this human alive, and I understand we are both in this together, and they never let go of that. They have better relationships with their kids are more healthier, mentally stable, more productive. Like there's a whole bunch of stuff that's better when men stay home with kids as well as women. So once they get access to these benefits, I think they want to give them up. They become proponents for this. Yes, you should take parental leave. Yes, we should be doing more of this. You want to work part-time because you don't have, and you don't have kids, but you just want to work part-time and you're a guy? Why? Like, what's right? You just think about your reaction to that. Why? What's wrong with you? What's going on with that? Why are we even why does that thought even come into our head? Why? It's all right for women to have part-time, but it's because they've got kids. So there's a legit reason, right, why you would only want to work part-time. But what if you just want to have a part-time business? What if you want to be a puzzler or a juggler? Or who cares? If you just want to work part-time, it's okay. Like it doesn't matter. So the workforce, yes, it's slowly shifting. What will accelerate that shift is when we together use our collective voices to challenge stereotypes. Catch your own thinking. Why did that feel weird to me? When I was on a plane recently and I heard someone saying, hello, my name is Jessica, I'm your captain and we'll be landing at blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, why did my eyes go wide open? What was I worried about?
Yeah.
Was a woman flying the plane? Is she all right? Is it that time of month? I mean, like, literally. I mean, is she okay? What? Where does that even come from? Here I am purporting how equal we are and how amazing it is. And, you know, posting and taking photos of engineers and pilots and astronauts that are female. And I hear a female voice on a plane and I stop. And we are in this matrix deep. When you have those moments, they're the moments where you go, oh, okay, how can I lean right into this? How can I talk about that experience and normalize it and say, this is what's happening. It's okay. It's fine. But it doesn't mean I have to then follow through with that thought. Like, do you think we're going to be okay? Flying the plane. Is it going to be okay? You know, then I might start celebrating it, talk to my daughter and saying, hey, a woman flying that plane. How amazing. That's really wonderful. Isn't it great? Isn't it great? And one day I want to be able to say nothing because it's not even worth mentioning. It's so normal.
Love it. Britt, what else we got?
Next question is from Anonymous. How do you act when your maternity leave and motherhood is brought up for your inconsistent performance during the period? Something I have struggled with, and I'm not sure if going to HR will help because of the power imbalance. Thanks.
Oh, okay, good. That's a good question. That's an important question. For me, it's about clarity of expectations. Whenever there's performance management issues, this is a really grey area, right? We know we've got a whole bunch of stuff that's objective. Did you or didn't you meet your goals? And then there's a whole bunch of stuff that's subjective. How did you meet them? Were you a good human in the process, right? So hopefully we're also talking about values and behaviours and stuff like that.
We do. We do.
Of course you do. I didn't expect anything less. So we've got these measures. Some are really black and white and some are really grey. And when we're looking at part-time roles, it can be hard to get clarity on what that new landscape should look like. When it's full-time, it's sort of easy. You're also benchmarking against other people who are doing full-time roles that are similar. But all of a sudden now we've cut the time in half. But typically what happens, Belinda, is we don't cut the expectation in half. So for anyone who's taken on part-time work, you will recognise this, that you probably worked twice as hard. You probably almost worked full-time hours, but just got part-time pay. Because this is what tends to happen because women feel the pressure that they're going to be downgraded in their performance evaluation and they won't get to demonstrate their value because also what happens when women go on maternity leave is that they get fewer challenging assignments. Right, so they get less opportunity to really show their chops. And so in this case, I would go back to your job description document. I would go back to the clarity of expectations. And if they are not clear, start clean and get them clear. Because it's a bit hard to go back when that wasn't set in the first place. But what we want to say is in my 3 days a week, here's the expectation. Here's what I can, that's right. Here's what I can deliver on. And my commitment is that we keep in dialogue if any of this looks like it's changing, if I can't keep up for any reason. Oh, and here's the other, behaviour expectations that sit around that. And then if that is unfairly dealt with, that is a clear conversation for HR. And it's unequivocal. Yeah, that sense there.
All right, I think we've probably got time for one more question.
Yeah. The last question is, how can we teach young women entering the workplace leadership skills? This is from Carolyn.
I think we teach women leadership skills the same way we teach men leadership skills. What we do differently for women, and this is a little bit how I run my Women at Work program, right? I used to call it Women in Leadership, but I realised it's not about women in leadership. It's just about women in the workplace. And so the message I would be sending women is that there is no reason you can't do anything that you see being done. And what I mean by that is women tend to enter the workforce with equal confidence to men. After a few years, their confidence goes down, not in themselves, but in the fact that, oh, actually, I don't see anyone doing what I want to do. I don't see any part-time female executives with a family. So if I want to be here in my career, maybe I need to adjust my expectations because I don't know how I would run the life I see for myself with what I see happening in the workplace. So maybe I just won't go for that job or I won't bother. And so what women need is reinforcement that that is possible for them. So we need to make it possible for them, for starters, by role modelling, but we also need to help women not downgrade their expectations because they don't think it's possible anymore. And also women are told disproportionately more than men that they're lacking confidence, which reinforces the cycle that they lack confidence, that they feel like they're lacking confidence. So we have to demonstrate to women that we believe in them. And you build confidence by taking action, not by sitting at home just like waiting to feel more confident. It doesn't happen that way. You have to do the thing you're not confident at in order to build evidence that you can do it to reinforce that that's how confidence arrives. So leaders of young women need to be saying, you should put your hand up for that role. I've put your name forward. You're going to be speaking in front of this department. Oh, by the way, I put you on secondment in the trucks division. Oh, by the way, I put you, you're now doing a store manager role where there's lots of big equipment, heavy loads, male dominated. No one would ever really think to do that. But I think it's going to be useful for your career because we want to put you through all the areas of the business because you're of high potential in this industry. We're not going to miss out on certain areas because women don't like to go there. Why don't they like to go there? They've never been offered. They've never thought about it. How would they know if they've never even been? They could be brilliant at it. So I would really double down on expecting that women can try more things and do more things and not just be expected to do the stereotypical things.
Love it. Love it. Okay. So we've only got a couple of minutes left. So that will bring us to the end of our International Women's Day Fireside chat. Thank you, Anneli. This has been a really fantastic conversation, and I'm sure everyone on the call and in the room has gotten heaps out of it. I know I did. Also, a big shout out again and thank you to the guys in the room, guys and girls in the room, for being our live audience. Really appreciate your attendance. A few closing requests before we go. So this morning we've released our 2 new Women at Metcash podcasts. So they're with our Chief Legal Risk and Compliance Officer, Julie Hutton, and also Trading Manager, Christiane Ruana. So jump onto our local and you can check those out. We also have 5 copies to give away of your new book, The Gender Penalty. So if you want to be, anyone on the call wants to be in the running to get one of those 5 copies, you just need to email the favourite place to work email address, and that will go into the chat function. And you just need to put 20 words or less with a reason of why you deserve a copy. And you might be a lucky winner of one of those 5 copies. Also, our preferred super provider, Australian Retirement Trust, they'll be running an exclusive member-only panel discussion later this afternoon at 1 o'clock. So if you're interested in jumping onto that, jump onto our local for the details. And with that brings us to the end. So thank you very much for everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Anneli, again for your time. It has been an absolute pleasure, and happy International Women's Day to everyone. Over and out.